Right, and welcome to Line Break Rugby, and we have Wallopy Joe, Harble Stuff, or Declan.
Yes, that's me.
And myself, Charlie. And we're going to be I think we're live streaming right now, in fact. The only problem I have is whether or not this is actually working. And it appears that it is, so happy days. Alright, what are we going to talk about? Rugby?
Well, we could mention the World Cup.
Oh yeah, we haven't actually touched on the World Cup yet.
So I think where we go from there is congratulations New Zealand. They deserve to win the final. They're now world champions. And let's move on to the Premiership.
Pro 12.
Well done New Zealand. They are far and away the best team, and have been for quite a while now, I think.
What a bunch of bastards.
What a bunch of bastards. They've absolutely destroyed the competition. And they're showing the rest of the world how to play rugby, which is an interesting thing. But they're quite vocal about the fact that they're doing that as well. So
yeah.
Oh, fair enough. They've done well. Right, should we move on to the Premiership and the Pro 12? Because that's what we're obviously watching at the moment.
Well, I'm not. I've watched a game. I can't even remember which one it was. This is awful. I don't know. I keep on saying that. I've been saying it for months that I need to make a more concerted effort to actually watch the matches that are being played, especially as I support one of the teams in said Premiership.
Well, yeah, and Quins are meant to be they're doing quite well this year, to be honest with you.
They've done all right as far as I can work out. The win we probably didn't deserve, and then I think there was a loss a week or two ago that we probably deserved as a win. So it'll be interesting to see where we go from here.
Are you on about the Tigers game?
Quite possibly, yes.
Okay. Well, I think Tigers they won what they needed to do. They did what they needed to do, to be honest. And although that you messed up a driving maul at the end of that game, if I remember incorrectly. And you got it turned over.
Jesus, just
illegally.
Today, just opened up the BBC to kind of work out what I'm going to talk about. Wasps beat Gloucester as 2 red cards.
Oh no, I watched that today. Yeah.
2 reds is a bit, awful.
It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't an overly feisty game.
Jesus.
The red cards were pretty horrendous, but
23-3 as well. That's
Gloucester embarrassed themselves. Not
shit
necessarily just they just completely they let it all go, to be honest.
So the first red card was for a flying elbow or forearm.
And the second was for a punch.
For a punch.
I think that's what I.
It was a punch that apparently I'd not seen it. Although I watched the game, I missed the two biggest talking points.
It was Lorenzo Cittadini sent off in the closing minutes.
Apparently it was because the game was over, so I think I must have just missed it. But
replays show
there wasn't
his
much power behind it.
Caught 12 trees around the throat as the pair wrestled for possession. That seems kind of ropey. That does. He was sent off. Replays show. His fist caught Gloucester captain 12 trees around the throat as the pair wrestled for possession. The way that's worded, I do quite want to see the replay of that, because that sounds like it could be quite an unfair
I don't think anyone. No one was complaining in the thread about it. It was just more the fact that there wasn't much power or a crazy amount of damage done. So, but you throw a punch, and you shouldn't throw a punch. But true. I'm also over the moon this weekend with Exeter. Just did anyone see this? Declan, did you see it?
Which incident?
Just Exeter versus Leicester. Sorry.
No, I didn't have that one on. I was actually watching Gloucester, and I tried to watch Ulster earlier.
Oh, okay. No. Exeter Tigers was on yesterday. Don't worry. Goodness. No, Exeter Leicester was on yesterday on Saturday.
Oh, okay. What was I watching then yesterday?
Were you not watching your own team? When was Leinster playing?
I was in the RDS on Friday for probably the worst refereeing display I've seen in a while. Leighton Hodges. Now, we won, so I'm not saying this out of spite or, oh God, no, we've lost and boo-hoo the referee. We have the 2 top attacking teams, number 1 and number 4. in the league at the moment. You fully expect some entertaining running rugby, but essentially I think the subreddit started calling him Leighton Last Warning or Final Warning Hodges, because he gave out 5 or 6 final warnings to the Scarlets. And for a deliberate knock on, he didn't even give a penalty. He gave the scrum, and in the Rugby World Cup, that was a yellow card for Scotland. Again, debatable, whether you agree with it or not, but
just a little bit annoying, eh?
Whenever Leinster ended up attacking inside their 22, they gave away a penalty, and okay, we came away with points, but just destroyed the game. He was whistle happy. Wales Online, their rugby section had a bit of a rant about how he ruined potentially one of the best matches of the season.
What was the score in the end?
19-15, so it was actually quite low. 2 tries to 1 for Scarlets. And then Sexton ran in a disallowed try for Leinster close to the end of the match. I think it was, who was it? Noel Reid obstructed, literally just ran into a player and prevented the tackle. So, it was like an entertaining collision right in front of me.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Oh, and at least you won. I suppose you got the win, which is the key. And I can't remember who CC. I keep forgetting who CC supports.
Cardiff.
It is Cardiff. All right.
Who's fan?
I just know that when I took the mick out of Scarlets for being a poor franchise, he got very defensive about it.
I'd probably like that with most of the regions, wouldn't he?
I struggle with the Welsh regions because they're so hit or miss as to. I mean, I know they've had strong years and they've had. But they're just, I don't know. I can't read any consistency in them.
No, it's I'd say the only team that has any semblance of consistency would have been the Ospreys. I think they've won 5 Pro 12 or Celtic Cup titles. Scarlets won 1, as far as I'm aware. So they used to be quite good, and then they kind of. Again, I'm not Welsh, so I don't know if I'm telling untruths here. I might be corrected. Unfortunately, CC isn't bad. So Scarlets, from what I can remember, they used to be good, kind of petered off. Ospreys were mostly dominant in Wales. Cardiff is a team that's packed, chock full of their internationals, fantastic players, and as a region, as a team, they've never fired. They were doing better than the Ospreys until I think this weekend, and the Ospreys shot up to 8th from 11th, and now I think Cardiff Blues are the second worst team. So it's and then obviously Scarlets up at the top 4. So
Connacht, that looking at that table, that makes no sense. What are Connacht doing at the top? I didn't think.
I love it. I'm actually thrilled to see it.
I don't slag off that particular Irish province, but as from just going off memory for the last few years, it's Munster, Ulster, and Leinster have always been, the top dogs, and I don't remember Connacht being that good.
They've never been a challenger, have they? That was the team that you were talking about. They had to force into creation because it couldn't exist naturally.
Yes.
Who have Connacht played so far? Because they've scored 199 points, which is it's Jesus. Cardiff Blues are second from bottom. Have scored 3 fewer points than the top scoring team.
I know, it's unbelievable, isn't it? It's so mind-bending. But let me tell you something. The first match of the season. For Connacht was against Glasgow in Glasgow, and they were so close to winning it, 34 points to 32. All they needed was a 3-pointer in the end, and I forget how that match finished, but I was on the edge of my seat.
That was the second round. Sorry, their first round game was against the Dragons.
That was it.
Yeah, they beat them 29-23. Sorry, now I've just gone on our website and had a look quickly. Because Adam's been updating the website with all the rounds and the fixtures and the highlights and everything. So
I think I should give him a hand.
33-32. That was very close for the Warriors. I think we've actually got someone live stream watching. So if you are actually watching, hello, and I'm gonna actually talk about what you have suggested. So we're going to talk about the US Pro League, and they're trying to create one. Have you guys heard about this?
Yeah, wait,
Yes.
so is this as in domestic competition rather than
The domestic competition that they're trying to create in America.
yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
and
The one
uh,
it's now backed by World Rugby and backed by someone else. I can't remember who.
the rugby union
Probably
is
USA Rugby or something.
USA Rugby.
uh,
Yeah, I
Yeah,
forgot the official name.
Rugby North America ahead of their announcement on Monday.
yeah.
That
So
sounds something worth clicking on.
that's being
USA.
backed. I'm actually really excited for it because I know that they've had what was it? A complete failure of teams just not existing and things going really, really wrong. Well, I can't remember what happened. Do you guys know? Apparently,
Not
they tried to set something up and then the teams just
So-
didn't show and
so,
or something fell apart.
The guy who tried to organise it, none of this was sanctioned by USA Rugby or World Rugby or anybody else. He then wanted to go in and get. I don't want to insult anybody, but the only way I can really describe it is not washed up, but just people who have never made the cut for American football. Bring them in. You get these guys who are ridiculous sprinters. You get other ones that are probably the width of the three of us put together. You also have tall players, but none of these are conditions to playing rugby, which is an entirely different sport. And honest to God, one last point, and this is probably the most entertaining one, is the guy who wanted to set this up is without a doubt one of the craziest people I have ever listened to speak. And he ranted on about communists and socialists in an interview with a guy who was supporting him and his league thing, and started attacking him verbally, not physically, and just got very defensive and insulting about everybody and everything. And the guy is mental. I don't know. I have no idea what to say. So thankfully that one has died. That one won't be going anywhere. He's still about, and I think he tried to do something 1 or 2 months ago, or he popped up on the sub. But yeah, this new one looks to be the real McCoys. So
I'm excited. I really hope that they include Canada because I've been to Canada, and I know they have a club rugby setup.
Well, they've both. I mean, both countries do have a couple of teams. I mean, they've San Francisco, Santa Monica. I mean, quite a few are in
Seattle.
In Seattle have Saracens.
And there's quite a few connections there, but I've been to Toronto and I've been to Ontario and.
But Ontario have a team called the Blues. There's a team called the Rock. The Prairie Wolfpack. That's a pretty good name for a team.
Yeah, but I really hope they get included because
British
I think
Columbia Bears.
Both these sides, America, the USA and Canada, both need growth because they're getting shown up by Japan and all these smaller nations that I think they can compete with.
Look, back in the 1990s, especially when the sport turned professional, the one country that Europe kind of looked to outside of Europe and the established Southern Hemisphere countries of Sanzar, so obviously excluding Argentina, was Canada. And essentially they would have been the ninth team considered so, or the I suppose was Italy. No, Italy would have. Yeah, so they would have been on par with Italy, kind of potentially thereabouts. Then they've gone nowhere. They've gone somewhat
they made
backwards.
a final in a World Cup once, but
yeah, but Argentina completely eclipsed them and Ireland because they reached semi-finals and we don't.
I actually think it's interesting the comparison between Italy and Argentina, mainly because in Argentina they didn't really have a club set up, but they were allowed to join the top level of competition in the Southern Hemisphere.
Right,
now, the difference is we have let Italy into the club setup. Now, it hasn't really helped them to have the club set up and to have the top level of competition. It for some reason that hasn't really worked, and I don't know why. But maybe it's just because that you get the players, you figure it out. Once you've got the team that's able to compete at the top level, then you can build the club and the grassroots interest. Otherwise, it's very hard for a club in Italy, especially have they got 3 or 4 teams in the Pro 12?
2.
They've only got 2. But it's even for them, I mean, they're struggling. They're non-competitive.
Yeah, and they have a domestic league of, I think, 8 teams.
Yeah,
I don't know the exact name.
It just doesn't feel right to me. So maybe I hope it works in the USA, but I think, although the club setup is a good idea, and I think everybody's positive about the idea of having a club setup, it's whether it actually works.
So, my understanding really is why they kind of went down that route is they want to. I suppose the more rugby on Italian TV and the more rugby available for bums on seats is helpful to spread the game. Mm-hmm. On top of that, they get to play against teams like Leinster, Munster, Glasgow, and so forth. And then, obviously they're the token team then for the European Cup. Unfortunately, I don't think that should be the case. But anyway, I'm detracting a slight bit. The reason why they have the clubs there is you need to foster growth in skills and the amount of players that you have in a country, I was about to say company, and then keep and retain that talent in that nation and funnel that into the team. Now, the problem is they've gone out and more than half the team isn't of any team, and I'm including Zebre, Treviso, and the national team. Half of them aren't Italian.
Just the Italian roots.
Yes, and I understand why you do that when you're not when you don't have a large playing pool. But then you look at a country like Argentina, and it's amazing. They find the talent and they're there. And
they had to. They've been put in the top. They didn't have a club set up, so they were forced to find players to remain competitive and not embarrassing in the Rugby Championship. They have been forced into that situation because otherwise they'd have forever remained an embarrassment.
Yeah.
So by being forced into creating these players, even though they didn't have a viable club set up, they've almost hunted down players and said, "Look, this is the way it's got to be, and you've got to play this way." And they've destroyed the old Argentinian way of playing and actually learnt how to play Southern Hemisphere rugby.
So on that point,
I think Italy just haven't done anything. They haven't even learned how to play Northern Hemisphere rugby very well.
No, that's actually a good point. But on Argentina's just for a second, on Argentina's playing style, I don't know how it was with ITV, but TV3 here, they kept talking over and over again about the current Argentinian playing style and how they've opened up and how they've changed. But what they said as well was really the perception, or what we would classify as the Argentinian way of playing was it's only about 25. No, sorry, it's 2015. It's about 30 years old. It's not as old as you think it is. It doesn't go back for the history of the sport in Argentina. So before the 1980s, I think they had a completely different playing style as well, and that was more open.
That's quite interesting. I think they. Yeah. I'm not sure when they became reliant on the scrum, but there must have been a point in time where they saw the scrum as being the way to win games.
Yeah,
and so that must have been what they just did.
I forget. They kept mentioning a specific coach that came in and kind of introduced it, and I should know.
Ayerza took it very, very seriously. He took that to heart. He was like, "Yes, the scrum." Ayerza.
Ah. Right.
He took that to heart and said, "That's how we will win rugby." Scrums.
Yeah. I don't. Foreign coach came in and changed it up, and that was it.
Do you think possibly somehow Italy could take a leaf out of Argentina's book in the way club and country have kind of worked? I mean, I'm just on Wikipedia now just because I was curious, and I mean, it says that there have been provincial club competitions in Argentina since the 1990s, but I mean, for as long as I can remember, Argentina has the international team has been filled with players.
Their clubs have been in Europe.
Play in the Premiership or the top 14 or Super Rugby, and they've now got the international side has gotten better and better and better with all these players playing far away from home. Now they've gotten so good, they're bringing the competition, they're increasing their domestic strength by bringing most of those players back to Argentina so that they can have a Super Rugby franchise.
Well, isn't it 80% of the team that played in the World Cup is going to be playing as the Super Rugby side or something? It is basically Argentina.
Yeah, they will be representing Argentina on a much more, I don't know, what's the right term for it? I'm not sure. But they will be,
they will be
playing, club. So do you not think somehow Italy might need to try and work out the best way to get as many talented players as they can playing abroad have them then, have a bit more success, and then that might snowball somewhat into them and having, or them being able to then build slightly more strength within their own domestic competition.
Yeah, so I think there needs to be a mix, which is essentially what Argentina had. Their amateur league is quite strong. I suppose we find it difficult to understand. Did we not have an Argentinian on once, and he did explain it to us? Yeah, I seem to remember that.
I don't know if we had an Argentinian on the podcast, but we may have had one on the sub.
Maybe he was offering to do it. I don't know if I dreamt this or not, but anyway. I'm dreaming about the podcast now. Come on, guys. And Argentinians talking about rugby. Actually, my neighbour to the left of me right now, from the direction I'm sitting in, is Argentinian, but that's a different story altogether. No, look, you need a mix, right? Because if your national team is not successful, it's difficult to watch, and not only are they not successful, they're horribly.
And players don't aspire to that.
Exactly, and look, it's great if we can turn around and say, increase the amount of players of Italian origin, or eligibility, and yes, if we do get 100 or 150. Then a certain amount of them are going to be at a certain grade that they can command a contract elsewhere. I mean, I'm struggling to think of how many Italians play at the highest level abroad.
There's honestly not that many.
I know.
And you look at them, and I think it's almost on one hand. I'm trying to think of
Parise,
really high level. Yeah, well, there's Parise, and then there was Giovanni. But he's getting too old now.
Out there.
Yes, true.
He's Argentinian born.
But no, he's been playing in Italy since he was young.
Yeah,
he's been, because I remember that I played rugby with someone who had a tour to Italy as a child, and they played against Parise, and Parise was playing at 15 at the time. He was a fullback, and they kicked it to him like the first game or something, and then Parise just ran through their whole team and scored, and they never kicked it again.
So
it was like a little, niche thing.
I think it's a massive shame that he's, not to slag Italy off too much here, with what I'm about to say, but it's a massive shame that he's been stuck with such a poor side for so long. Because if he had been capped for Argentina,
well, he'd be loving it right now, wouldn't he?
He'd be doing so well, and I reckon it must be a bit crap to be such a good player on a team that's prospects are quite as low as Italy's.
Yeah. I'm gonna bring it back to the chat again, because we got to ask what the difference between 2007 and 2015 is, and the playing style, and why running rugby is winning.
I think I'm going to go with a perhaps more emphasis being put on different parts of the game, and there was a lot of forward orientated rugby, which there still is, but especially if you look at teams like New Zealand in particular, with the crazy, ridiculous players like Sevilla and Milner Scudder and Piatau and Smith and Dag, and I reckon, because they've gotten so much better, especially with the Southern Hemisphere teams, the fact that their backs will, what's the phrase called, the
break the line.
No. The Maori sidestep.
It doesn't. It's gone. It's basically, just the avoidance of contact.
Yeah, but I think the amount of skill within the backs has changed so much, because whereas there are still many players, Sevilla in particular, who are very good with the Maori sidestep and will walk through opposition like they weren't there, they've also got, along with that, the skill set to literally dance their way through an opposition's defensive line, and if they do get caught up by someone, they're offloading with so little effort but with so much precision that even if you've got very good forwards, they just can't step up to that level of intensity that the backs are demonstrating.
I think, I don't know if you guys have done it, but there's a thing we do at training, and a rugby training, where...
Oh, definitely not done that.
It's basically rugby training, when you get told that it's basically half touch, and you are allowed to offload out of the touch tackle, basically.
Right.
And what you find is it's almost impossible at certain time to defend against it. It cannot be done. And a defensive team will actually get annoyed that the coach is even running the drill because it's impossible to defend against.
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking that. I mean,
and what New Zealand have done is essentially just gone, well, if it's impossible to defend against, let's do it in a proper game. And they've done it, and they can do it all the time.
Treat me like a 5-year-old for a second. I would assume, just because it's been so ridiculously long since I even played a game of touch, is it you have to have both hands touch for it to be considered as a tackle?
It is, but it's also a little bit of contact as well. So it's a really strange drill. I actually used to get.
But can't take a player to the ground. Or?
Yeah, exactly. You can't necessarily take a player to the ground, and it gets a little bit annoying because people will play it and they'll be like, "Well, is this contact or is this touch?"
Well, no. Here's the thing. I mean, just thinking about that sounds. I'm just thinking about it. Sounds horrible to play as a defending player because if they're allowed to offload, then if you don't in any way prevent all passages for the ball to go backwards in a touch tackle, they're going to get the ball away. And it's like just watching a player in club or test level rugby falling off a tackle because if they can't, it's basically not completing a tackle.
It teaches defenders to track support runners, and it teaches attacking players how efficiently they can offload. It actually teaches them whether they can do it and whether they can't, and they need to learn how to do it, essentially.
Because the problem with offloading is, it's become the buzzword, at least here in Ireland, and, why aren't we offloading? This is the amount of offloads that's happened. Ireland can offload, Leinster has done it, why aren't we doing it? Blah, blah, blah. But genuinely, what you're told is if you aren't good at offloading, don't try and do it because you're not going to get the ball away and you're going to maybe give away an intercept. It's going to be knocked on. So maybe that's just Northern Hemisphere rugby is conservative.
And
if you can't do it, don't do it. But you need to practice it in some way. And I'm looking at it thinking this actually does make sense for offload practicing. You're enabling them to do it. And you're just giving them the opportunity to, and then the more you do it, the more you practice, the more you're aware of how it's done.
I can't imagine Hansen sat down with Brodie Retallick and went, "You can't offload, never offload." That conversation never happened. What he did was he sat down with Brodie Retallick and went, "You want to be the best second row in the world? You will learn to offload, and you will learn to be able to distribute as a second row."
It's.
I mean, maybe not with such big words because it's Brodie Retallick, but.
Northern Hemisphere needs a massive overhaul to just be more like Southern Hemisphere because, again, just to go back to the All Blacks' performance in the World Cup where they were a class above everyone else, it seems so often like it's not just that, they have a team of 8 forwards and 7 backs, but they have a team of 8 forwards who have trained with backs as backs and 7 backs who have trained with forwards as forwards. And that, I don't mean that, you've got the back 3 scrumming down, but you've got the 7 backs are being actively taught how to ruck and how to poach, and you've got the forwards being taught how to offload and how to sidestep, and how Dane Coles always ends up on the goddamn wing and scores very effectively. They've clearly, there's got to be some kind of, there's less of a visible line between who they have playing, and I suspect who they have as forwards and backs is probably weirdly more down to shape and size of the player rather than their innate abilities.
I think they teach them all essentially to be a centre. They all teach them you're going to be a 12 or a 13, but then you're actually built like a second row, so you're actually going to play second row. And New Zealand, I think that's just New Zealand way. They're really good at handling and ball handling and distribution, and every single player on that team can do that.
But again, I think that the small comparison that we have to make again is a cultural one. And you look at New Zealand, and you have how many thousands of young schoolboys playing compared to Ireland, England, well, okay, not Wales, and Scotland.
Yeah.
And, you're just able to develop skills a bit more. And, as you're growing up, you're going to play in different positions. And there's more of an understanding for rugby, I suppose, just across the board. I mean, I just see it as being more natural to them than it is for here in Ireland. I don't know. Maybe that's just in my head.
I was going to bring something up similar to that in that perhaps one of the going back to the Italy problem, perhaps one of the biggest issues they have as a rugby playing nation is the fact that they are actually a football playing nation, and so.
But so are Argentina.
Well, actually, that's a fair point. Fine.
Argentina are a very football nation.
I imagine you could also make the case for the States, and they're very much American football, baseball, basketball, so or lacrosse, trying to get people into another sport that is lower down in the pecking order. But Argentina's a lot bigger than Italy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, but I think the key so Argentina, yes, is bigger than Italy, and I think that they've got a very strong core in a certain part of the country. But I think the USA can do the same thing. That although American football and basketball and all of these high contact sports and everything, they're all spread out throughout the USA. But I do think that they could find the areas of rugby and build them in those areas. There will be specific areas where rugby exists, and they can build on that, and that's where they need to build them. They don't want to go, well, these are the best places because they have the most amount of people. They need to actually just build where they exist as of now. So right now, there will be places that have rugby, and that's where they need to build.
I mean, just off the top of my head, I'd probably say West Coast, Seattle, San Francisco, center of the country. You're looking at where I think Austin has a small rugby community. I think Chicago
Austin,
as well.
Texas. Well, Austin, Texas has a hurling team, doesn't it, or a Gaelic football team?
Yeah, I think there's a few. We spread like.
Shouldn't they be all in? They should be in Boston or Chicago, shouldn't they?
Yes, but I mean. But outside those four areas I just mentioned, including Chicago, on the East Coast, I'm struggling to think where there's maybe a centre.
I can't even think
would you say Boston?
Of the states on the East Coast.
Boston,
New England, 13. And then where would you say for Canada? Maybe Toronto, obviously.
Toronto is a great area. I've played a lot of rugby in Toronto. It was good fun. As a school, I was as a 15, 16-year-old, but it was still great fun.
I'd love if there was an Anglo-Canadian team and the Quebec team. That would be entertaining. and then France plays against Quebec.
If you could, although I suppose you'd end up, it'd probably be more less Anglo and more Yank, but you'd still have English speaking against French speaking. There could be a nice rivalry.
That would be interesting, isn't it? We've just got a question on the chat on the thoughts of a no Super Rugby team for the South Sea Islanders. And my initial thought on that is that Super Rugby doesn't trust the rugby unions based in Fiji and Samoa.
I wouldn't. I mean, who is it that is it Samoa or Fiji? Where maybe it's both, but there's a lot of corruption. The fact that the players are receiving just sod all of the money that's going towards their unions.
I think there's zero trust between the unions and the actual players. So for a start, that's something that Super Rugby would see as being in quotation marks toxic. So they wouldn't want to touch it. But also, they want eyes on the screen and bums on seats in stadiums. And if you gave a South Sea Islander, say Fiji or Samoa, and put a stadium on one of their islands and said that's where we'll play, you might get the whole island going.
Yeah, I was going to say you'd probably fill out an entire stadium.
But the eyes on screens won't be as big. You might fill a stadium, but the eyes on screens will not be big, and the advertisement is going to be lower.
On that,
they can see if they can see themselves on the telly. But
I mean, New Zealand travelled to Samoa, and the stadium had 10,500 seats.
Yeah, it's not a big stadium.
Yeah, I think that was the second biggest because they had to downgrade for some reason. But still, I mean, even if there's an extra 10,000, you're looking at, like the RDS capacity here in Dublin. So,
it was said during the World Cup, during one of the games at Wembley, that if they just added an extra 10 or 15,000 seats in there, granted it's already a 90,000 seat stadium, and you're probably not going to get one of those down in the Pacific Islands, but you could fill it with the population of Tonga, which it kind of surprised and impressed me. But would you say most of the the Pacific Island players are playing in Europe or in the Super Rugby?
Definitely Europe. France and England.
Because
you reckon? Because there is now quite a large contingent in Kiwi and Australian rugby. Not so much South Africa.
But as soon as they have any talent.
The French, the French do like to
Murads will come a knocking. That's all I'm gonna say.
It's gonna get to a point where someone is just gonna say, "Can we not please rename Toulon to the Barbarians or Le Barbarians?" Because I was looking at their teams recently, especially with the signing of Quade Cooper. The talent is. It's like a Barbarians team you'd expect to see a young test side playing before their summer tour. It's incredible.
And to take it, just to quickly take it back, I think the South Sea Islanders do deserve, like the players themselves, do deserve a Super Rugby team.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that they have pioneered and made the waves that is required in rugby. I just think they're being let down by the people who run, and they're being let down by just the fact that they come from such a small nation and commercialism in general. There's no... People look at it and go, well, there's no money in it, so why would we put something like that? Whereas they look at Japan and Argentina, these massive countries with lots of people that view different things and buy lots of different products.
On top of that, if you think how almost naturally gifted just about all of the Tongan, Fijian and Samoan players are as rugby players, if they were to get their own just one Super Rugby team, shore up some of their talent back from other Super Rugby franchises and away from Europe, if you could have a team that consists of players from all 3 Pacific Islands, which I can't imagine we see very often, if ever,
it would be epic.
They could perform, I think, at such a high level, and I reckon that could bring them a level of success that perhaps, if there are continuing ongoing problems within their own unions, it might either show them up or expose them, and perhaps show that the players themselves deserve much better than what they currently have.
Someone posted this on the sub. I can't remember where, but I can't remember the exact details of the post. But they said a Pacific Islands team based somewhere like Hong Kong. You would have viewership, obviously the Pacific Islands and then Hong Kong. You'd have the attendance, and it's not going to be the richest team out there. It's not going to be who knows successful or not. Obviously recruit then almost entirely from Pacific Islands, all 3 or more.
Yeah,
and that would help retain control over a certain amount of players for each Pacific Island team. Right,
that's
so
interesting.
10 each or 15 each, who knows? And they're not going to be the best, because obviously the best is still going to go to Super Rugby, Japan and Europe. But if it could be a successful team, or if it's commercially successful as well, because if it's based in Hong Kong, I think the stadium there in Hong Kong, how for the Hong Kong Sevens, what's the capacity for that? It's 50. They always fill it. Well, in Hong Kong, it's always filled out. It's amazing.
They used the same stadium for the Barbarians against the Lions in 2013.
Yeah, which was like 80 points to 0, no?
It was about 40 to 10 or something. But no, that's about. I'm sure it's about 60 or 70,000. I think.
Yeah. So there you go. There's a strong base, and it could be commercially viable. You might be able to get some sponsorship in there as well. If there's a way that you can keep it actually out of the hands of the corrupt unions, because again, look, we're all going back to the point that the unions are the problem in the Pacific Islands, and not even the unions, the politicians as well, wasn't it? The president of Fiji was meddling in with the Fijian union. It was a bit of a joke.
Yeah, it's all a little bit interesting. I'm going to move us away again from this and just talk about the fact that I've just read the Guardian article rather than the Daily Mail or the Sun printing it. It's a Guardian article about the fact that the kit man's been giving tips to the rugby team, to the English rugby team, and as a result of them losing of these tips, quite a few English rugby players have lost thousands of pounds of money.
I thought it was just over £100,000, but
overall it is. But each player has probably lost quite a bit.
I think Sam Burgess lost in around 30 grand.
It's ridiculous.
And that was before.
We move away from this, because just whatever is going on within the England setup as a whole is becoming, quite frankly, I would be relieved to hear some like dwarf tossing stories coming out of this World Cup. Even if it was England, it would just I don't get how we've regressed so far back in less than a year. It's shocking, and it's just
it's an absolute it's a complete mess, and the whole England rugby at the moment is a farce. I mean,
it's you know what's really upsetting though, because it's the way everything's gone. I don't want to spend too much time talking on England because it'll just make me angry. But it's the way everything started 3.5 years ago with Lancaster coming in and kind of everything cleaning house, and we seem to be at a fairly high point back after the Six Nations and look to be in a somewhat strong position, but it's the last 2 or 3 months I think we absolutely have to clean house again and perhaps be slightly more thorough than we were before.
It's not just the head coach that's going to solve it.
I've got to clean out I think RFU itself has to get a massive clear out of its
I think every union on the planet has its cadre of old boys.
The rotten old boys that do my head in.
Biggest issue, the review panel that Lancaster is I suppose probably under now. I think at least half the people who are reviewing his performance should they themselves be under review, and it's just that's never going to get sorted out unless World Rugby steps in, which is probably never going to happen.
No,
they never would.
I think just the biggest example of cleaning house would be the Australian Rugby Union, and you can see that certain coaches.
After Deans.
Well, certain. What I mean though is like, okay, look, a head coach is only going to have a certain amount of influence, right? And I think the two at the moment that I would say are at the forefront of wielding the most influence in their respective unions is Warren Gatland and Michael Cheika.
Yeah.
Now, I think Joe Schmidt has a bit of clout as well, but you don't really hear it, and I don't think there's been that many changes in the IRFU. There was the incident with calling a press conference, and then a couple of weeks later, Matt O'Connor is gone. So I think he definitely has influence there. But you look at the Welsh Union and the Australian Union, and those are two of the most hostile environments on the planet for rugby as a head coach, as anybody. And you've seen now that the reason why Gatland has been so successful, the reason why he's around for so long, is he has that personality that he can go in and you do not fuck with him.
No. He's not faced by any of the inner bullshit that seems to be going on in the WRU.
And Australia, I think, was a bit worse, and then Cheika just goes in and, straight away he gets his way. Rules have changed, people have come back, players have started behaving. So look, Lancaster definitely did a lot of good things. But I just think he didn't have the same influence or personality that Gatland's or Cheika has. Even Schmidt, I think, is a bit more bossy than Lancaster appears to me.
It's not something I ever thought I'd say or even think, to be honest. But I'm just kind of thinking. Imagine if you had Martin Johnson coaching the England team, but you had Lancaster overseeing what was being done there. I feel like you kind of get the best of both worlds of what we had.
Oh yeah,
I know what you mean, because
turn around in their setup.
I have a huge problem with the whole idea of the overseeing and the underlings, because I think it is just the whole culture, as you've been saying. It's everyone involved, and the head coach cannot control everyone. It's never going to happen. And like you said, we just need to clean house and get a whole new team in there.
Fingers crossed. I'd love to see it.
If anyone want to try and back me somehow, I'd be happy to do it, and then I'd just read everything written in the Rugby Union subreddit and just do whatever it is that gets the most upvotes. And I guarantee we'd win the next World Cup with that.
So we just got another chat saying Pedro wants to talk about Aussie's selections and how that'll affect the Australian Super Rugby and the NRC in the long run. If we're going to talk if we're going to talk about Australian rugby, we need Barbs really, because he is the king of Australian rugby.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose the issue there, on a more general note, is opening up the rules.
Well, I mean,
the competition for players moving to Europe compared to staying back in Australia, that's opened it up as well. So
that's only a problem for those, because I can't remember the exact wording, but I'm fairly sure 60 caps is the lower limit. So someone who has 60,
wasn't it the exact caps that Gitto was on or over? Wasn't
quite
that,
possibly, but
wasn't it?
It was.
I think he was just over it. I think 61 or something.
If the rule was brought in specifically for Gitto and Mitchell, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, so the fact that they had, because they played exceptionally well, and the fact that
they did. Yeah, okay.
I mean, granted, they played well. Point being, if they've got that kind of talent, I mean, I reckon they're safe. And I think they're both retiring, which makes this point kind of moot. But if there are any other players in the Australian core setup that are at that level.
Well, Adam Ashley Cooper, who said he was not going to retire and not going to announce his retirement, he could be one of those players.
Yeah, you never know. But here's the thing. I mean, in a way, it's a pragmatic move because certain players are going to move no matter what. Money is money is money. Money talks.
Get that loyalty, though. You get that loyalty, which is
exactly, and it's rewarding players.
Yeah, that's the thing. Whereas you've got, just to bring it back to England very briefly, Abendanon and Armitage, who both in the last week and a half have bitched publicly in whatever paper they write for that England are crap and they should have been playing and they have a spot in the World Cup. Wherein one of them has, I think, no caps and the other has 2 caps, and they moved well after that rule was set in place, and they're still having a bitch about it. Whereas for Australia, it's a rule that was put in specifically for players who have given us, a great deal of time and effort into their national team, and the disparity between the two is night and day. And it's Australia have made it work well, and
I think it'll be all right. I think the Australians. They've done well to sort it out. They actually, and this was the big call that we talked about pre-World Cup, was Kane Douglas being brought back. He actually had a really good World Cup.
Yeah. Fantastic until the final.
With the injury that he's sustained.
I feel really bad for him.
But he's had a really good World Cup. He had a really good World Cup, and they actually almost justified in bringing him back. To be honest, they needed him.
They did, and unfortunately, I think he was the biggest blow in the final. But on that point, I think why did Kane Douglas come back? Michael Cheika. So how are these rules or these law changes going to work in the ARU with players being allowed to go abroad with a strong national coach? There's a huge amount of respect for Michael Cheika. He is a fantastic communicator as well. So the players know where they stand. They know what they need to do, and they know what his plans are. And, obviously he came in with a year and a bit, and he told everybody they're going to be in a Rugby World Cup final. So he motivates people, and he scares the shit out of them too.
He seems like a fairly nice bloke, but I can't imagine he's the kind of person that you'd intentionally go about pissing off.
He's basically your mix of Lancaster and Johnson that you were talking about. But here's the thing, I mean, without someone with his personality or someone as strong as him, then I think it's going to be difficult to keep that rule in place.
Sorry, I'm just what the fuck?
What is this? I haven't opened it.
It's completely unrelated to the topic.
I was like, all right, we're talking about this, and then Wallaby Joe, he sends me a link to a GIF, so I was like, all right, it'll be something interesting. Clicks on it. It's how to make a pizza.
Barbecue chicken, red onion, more cheese.
Does that not look really good? I know, just for context, I've been doing it for since I made at home my own pulled pork and caramel and chocolate flapjacks and showed Harble the pictures. Since then, I keep occasionally posting images of particular food.
You're always posting food in our group chat. Is all come on, and Adam and Alex are chatting about something to do with the website. Harble's drunkenly rambling, and then there's just Wallopy Joe, just like bam, picture of piece of food.
I'm sure it's me, Charred Cheese, and Adam talking about Tinder or something again.
CC trying desperately to get you off the bottle, and you just desperately trying to drink more.
And then suddenly there's a great big picture of a couple of massive burgers or some pasta dish, and it's
people wonder how we haven't managed to podcast in a while.
It's not my fault. This is clearly Sav who's gone sidetracked from something he could have just ignored.
I could have just walked it on, but I was just it just hit me, and I was just surprised.
Is that chocolate bacon you've posted now?
Perhaps.
Oh my god. Oh.
If I quickly save the picture, I can actually put it up on the stream for everyone to see.
Well, it's on our food, so I just got distracted slightly while.
So can I ask?
Of course.
How have people found out that we're broadcasting live? I'm really curious there.
Well, it goes out on YouTube, so
yeah. Okay.
So if you're subscribed,
that knows it's us that's recording, just has a notification to say when anything's going on. Another user who we don't know we've got a fan of yet.
Boom, there you go. We're now streaming candied. I'm going to call it candied bacon. That's what I'm going to call it. It's chocolate bacon, but.
So wait, so how many listeners do we have at the moment on the YouTube channel?
I think we have 2 and myself, so 3 overall.
One of those better not be Harble.
Nope. I'm not listening. I never listen to it.
I don't actually know if I count as a viewer, to be honest, because I'm viewing it on our streaming page rather than on the view page, so I don't know if I count. Yeah. But I think there's just 2. But yeah, we like that you guys are here. This is going to be saved anyway and uploaded, so that's all cool.
Go us. Okay, so what were we talking about before the?
I don't know. Something rugby.
We're talking
about Exeter are going to win the Rugby Premiership, the Aviva Premiership.
You're second in the table.
Yeah.
But they've scored the most points.
Not only are we second, we are the greatest team, and we just
second least.
Yeah, defensively at the weekend we just showed ourselves to be absolutely dominant. It was ridiculous.
Harlequins, third most points scored in the. That said, they've let in a lot. Our defence hasn't.
Concede very easily.
Yeah, at least we don't concede like Newcastle and London Irish have, because they're tapping into this year's London Welsh. When they face each other, it's just
it's going to be the two. Table. Well, London Welsh are losing in the Championship.
Are you serious? How did they get up 2 years ago?
They're just they're losing heavily in the Championship.
Is there more? Let's go to, just because I've got the BBC open. Let's see.
So I've got BBC as well, but can I just say, does that mean that promotion has essentially destroyed them?
Well, no, they're.
It's what they did to their squad after they got promoted.
They sold everyone. They got rid of their squad and bought in a bucket load of mercenaries.
Their points.
Didn't they all leave?
Minus 50. That's not looking good for them.
I think they might go down.
London, let's see, Bristol most likely to come up then.
Oh yeah.
If they do, which I'd be quite interested to see, because there's a lot of talk most years about Bristol, and they've always, as best I can work out, that in the years where a team hasn't come up to the Premiership from the Championship, it's always been Bristol who have failed to, in some always the bridesmaid never way.
And it's always the second match they lose.
So it
is.
I'd love it if Bristol could make it into the Premier.
It's interesting this year because Doncaster and Yorkshire and Bristol, those 3, I reckon, are the big dogs this year. Bedford are doing all right by the looks of it, but I know Doncaster beat Bristol actually recently. Yeah. I think that was the last game. Maybe they won.
Let's see. London Scottish, my local club, because they are really bloody close to me. Is really? Points difference of they're about. I could drive there in less than 5 minutes. I reckon, depending on the level crossing. But yeah, three points difference, positive. So they've got that. They've lost more than they've won. But they're middle of the table.
Now we're gonna quickly have a little look, if we can, at my old team that recently got promoted to Gloucester 1. And we're just gonna have a little check. I reckon they'll be bottom of the league. Oh, they're not bottom of the league.
What? Jesus, what is going on with your voice there?
They are. Sorry, I'm excited. I'm very excited. I was expecting them to go up. See, I left, and they didn't have a fly half when I left.
Very quickly, it's either my speakers or your microphone has shit the bed all of a sudden.
Oh, is it gone?
Because you're coming through and stupid.
You're fine for me, so
okay, well,
you're
it's
both
just
fine.
Very static.
I'm going to post a link to the table, and it's Bishopston RFC. It's going to go into the live stream, hopefully.
Has anybody seen that thread I just linked you to in Skype?
Oh, hang on, check this out. National League 1, my other two local clubs, Richmond, who play at London Scottish, 4th, Rosslyn Park, other direction, sameish distance, 6th. So yeah, it's clearly I should be paying more attention to this.
Oh,
not doing too terribly.
Get on it, right? And so that's one team that I used to play for. Looked up.
Which team? Sorry, because I didn't hear.
Bishopston RFC. So I've posted that.
Which league is that?
They were in Gloucester 1. They're.
Where can I?
They're in Gloucester.
So is that National 2S?
No, it's I don't know what it is. I'll be honest with you, I don't have a clue. But that's all right. No. And then my other club is Chipstead. They're middle of the table. They're 6th out of 10 in Surrey. In Surrey 1, so they're doing fine.
Oh, check this! National League Division 2 South, Barnes, very close. Middle of the table. They're crap. Played 9, lost 1.
We've gone from talking about rugby to talking about our local.
I have no idea where any of these places are.
Bury St Edmunds, which is where my aunt and grandmother live. Barnes is beating them, so for that I'm happy.
Okay.
That's completely unrelated, but we're beating them, so go us.
Right, I'm going to play the outro music now, and we're going to end the podcast on that. Where's your local team, Harble, and where are they playing?
I don't really have a local team. I suppose from where I'm from, Castleknock, the local team there is Coolmine Rugby Club, but they're well down. They're like in Metro Division 5 or something, or 6. Then the two teams that I was... Sorry? Far south Dublin at the moment.
Oh, yeah. Okay, just check this table quickly. The one I'm posting a link to here.
All right.
That's Irish domestic section 1 and 2, A and B rather. Which one of those is closest to where you are?
Right, the outro music is playing.
All right. It's probably going to be closer to Blackrock RFC or UCD RFC.
Wait, Blackrock or who?
Or UCD.
UCD, I can't see UCD. Oh, right, so you're either 2nd in Section A or 8th in Section B. That's quite a wide spread there.
Yeah, they'd be the two closest, actually. There's no other rugby club. Yeah. Both are about 35-minute walk away from me, or about 10 minutes drive. Yeah.
Bye, guys.